Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SopranoCast. Nate Maxon here, along with my associate, Mr. Archie Mitchell.
What's up, everybody?
And we hope everybody had a happy holiday season. We hope you missed us. Life has been happening to the both of us. But we're back on track. We're ready to get going and rolling into the last 3 episodes. As we go through the next 3 episodes of our show, we'll be rounding up season 1, and shit's getting good.
Oh yeah, and I'd like, the rumors are not true. Nate and I were not in witness protection. We didn't flip. We're still on the up and up with the Sopranos. And Nate, some people may not know this, but right now we're in the middle of January, and it is actually the 25-year anniversary of the Sopranos.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, it's funny that you mentioned that because I wrote that down.
Yeah.
I noticed on HBO Max they had they have a whole Sopranos hub of a bunch of stuff that when I have a minute, when I have a little free time, I definitely want to dig into some of that they have on there, a lot of the extras.
Well, here's the thing. You ever find yourself asking a question about the Sopranos that you didn't really want the answer for, but you were like, how the hell did this happen?
Yes.
That's what those hidden gem to extra 15 or 25 second clips are. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like we all ask the question, how did everybody find out that Tony tried to suffocate his mother with a pillow in the nursing home? But we never really expected an answer. Well, one of those hidden missing 25-second videos that they have up tells you the answer to that. And I'll be honest with you. At the end of it, I was like, I really don't care. I'll be
right.
You know what I mean?
It didn't matter as much as I thought it did.
Right, because it just really didn't make any sense anymore once they explained it. But it is what it is. It's HBO, let's be honest, milking what they can out of the Sopranos and seeing if people are going to go, we want a part 2 to the Many Saints of Newark, you know.
Right.
So, but it's still good.
And I think that, speaking of that, I was thinking about that the other day because it's a part of the story. I think the last episode, unless they do something between now and then, but I think the last episode of this show, because it was the latest thing that's been produced.
Right.
Instead of our last episode being the last episode of The Sopranos, our last episode of this podcast will probably be reviewing that movie.
That's going to be a short episode for me because I only like the last 10 minutes of that movie.
I think we're going to be in the same boat there. I'm not a fan, but we'll get there when we get there.
You know, I don't want to get into it too much, but I will just say Ray Liotta, who was a fantastic member of the mob in Goodfellas and actually played a mobster in a couple of different movies, but mainly Goodfellas. My God, was he bad in that movie?
Yeah.
Oof, it was just, I don't know.
I wonder looking back on it now, knowing what we know now, I wonder if he was in poor health or something, during the filming.
I think it was just the character altogether. I don't know. It was like, I don't know. It was weird. It was weird, but we'll get into that when the time is right.
Yes. I will say, and I, again, like you said, I don't want to harp on it too much, but to be honest with you, my favorite thing about that movie is Junior.
Junior and that last 10 minutes when you see Tony becoming Tony somewhat, you know what I mean? And obviously it's his son that's playing, James Gandolfini's son is playing Tony Soprano in the Many Saints of Newark. And then the Sopranos music hits and you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Leaves you wanting more. Definitely.
I wanted more, right.
More. Yes.
Right. You finally find out what happened to Christopher's dad. You finally figure out what, you see a little bit of Tony's dad, which I will say this, the actor they chose to play Johnny Soprano, as much as I like him, maybe not the best casting. You know what I mean? Because we've seen Johnny Soprano on The Sopranos before as this big, monstrous-looking man.
Right.
And then the guy they casted in the movie was sort of like, all right, he's passable.
Meh.
Well,
the end of that movie was kind of like, did you watch the TV series Gotham?
Yes.
Okay. It was kind of like watching the last 10 minutes of that movie were kind of like when you watch the last episode of Gotham, where
Right.
when Gotham ends, I'm still waiting for them to make a new Batman series using that story, using those characters, because you just got to the point where Bruce was becoming Batman.
Right. Exactly.
And I know the point of that series was to show the, up till he becomes Batman, but it would have been a great base for a new Batman TV series.
Oh,
I hope that one day they do that.
I agree with you 100%. That kid they picked to play him, the young man they picked to play the Joker, the young lady they picked to play Catwoman, fantastic.
Yeah.
It was even Alfred and Commissioner Gordon, well done on picking a cast that matched what we've always known about Batman.
Yeah, and then doing just enough different,
right,
where it left you guessing. Like I know this isn't about that show, folks, but I loved the fact that throughout that series they kept us guessing on who's the Joker, who's the Joker, who's the Joker. You thought that one kid was going to be the Joker, and then he wasn't, and then you thought the other kid was going to be the Joker, and then they did a great job with that series.
Oh yeah, very well done.
But the episode of television that we're talking about today is episode 11 of season 1 of The Sopranos. It is Nobody Knows Anything. The original air date was March 21st, 1999. Lots of good stuff in this. I don't have hardly anything negative to say about this episode.
Oh, no. This one and the next one are two of my absolute favorite Soprano episodes, if not my favorite. You know what I mean? Right up there with Pine Barrens and a couple other ones, because it's the beginning. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy. We're 10 episodes in, 11 episodes in, and I say it's the beginning, but no, it's the absolute beginning of where you're at the edge of your seat going, yes, yeah, So it's fantastic.
Especially after the last couple of episodes were kind of just there.
Well, they were family heavy.
Especially that last one. Like I said before, when we did this, the A Hit is a Hit. That's one of my least favorite episodes of the series. Right. Whereas now we get into some of I'm much like you. This is one of my favorite. One of my favorite 3 episode arcs that we're about to embark on here.
Right. And here's the thing: at this point in time for The Sopranos, HBO already told them, "Oh, we're picking you up for another season. In fact, we're picking you up for another couple of seasons." This wasn't like one of those shows where they were in question, are we going to get renewed? By episode 5, they knew they were renewing them.
Right.
So the fact that they chose to go this hard with 11, 12, and 13 goes to show how great of a writer and producer David Chase was, that he knew there were still bigger things to come than this. Because everything that happens in these 3 episodes could have been the whole series. It was so much. It just went from height to height to height, and you're like, oh God, I can't take anymore. And then you get to season 2, and you're like, Jesus Christ, it's still going. It's getting worse. It's getting worse, but better for us. It's getting worse for him, but better for us. Fantastic.
This episode starts out. We have the theme. We have to start out the episode with Puss throwing out his back.
Oh God!
Because
and of all the places,
at a bordello, of all places, and of course, my least favorite character. We'll get to that. That's why I was happy later in this episode. My least favorite character, Makazian, is there also at the bordello. But it's a very important plot point for the show for Puss to throw out his back here. And then he is at Jimmy Altieri's social club.
Well, wait. You're forgetting one of the best characters to ever make a cameo in The Sopranos ever. Dr. Moppinglow.
Ah, yes.
There is a doctor who goes to the bordello and wants the young lady of the night to dress him as a maid and I guess have her way with him. And I swear, you're watching Pussy. They think he's having a heart attack. And they're like, oh God, it's his heart. And he's like, no, it's just my back. And then this madam says, go get Dr. Moppinglow. And you're expecting at least a guy in like a shirt and a pair of underwear to come through because he's a doctor. You know what I mean? But a man in a full-on mage outfit walks into the door,
Yes.
holding a dish sponge and checking Pussy's back out. It's like ridiculous. And Tony's just sitting there going, "What? Like, where am I?"
Yeah, what the fuck
You
is
know?
going on? It's like, you do you, just help my friend.
Right.
Yeah, I did not write that down. I'm glad you thought of it, because
Yeah,
I didn't write that down when I was taking my notes.
it's one of the weirdest things they've ever done on this show. It's like a grown-ass man in a maid uniform. So, yes, then they go to Jimmy Alpieri's, I guess it's his bar or hangout or whatever it is.
Yeah. And our friends from the Federal Bureau of Investigation show up.
Yes. It is a raid. And Jimmy's like, it's just a friendly card game. Meanwhile, there's like $40,000 on the table.
Yeah. And then I think if I wrote it down correctly, little fun thing here, they find all the guns in the pool table.
Yeah, like that one agent just decided, I'm going to roll this ball on this table and make sure it's real. Like,
right. Yeah.
It
just so happens. But it's fun anyway.
Oh, yeah. Pussy's inching out the door, waiting until their eyes aren't on him.
Tries to run. Oof.
God. I haven't seen running that bad since the last time I was on a treadmill.
Yeah, the man's run is barely a jog. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
They
catch him. He goes to prison, and then he's out in like an hour.
Yeah, but let's. Okay, so Jimmy goes with him to jail, and Pussy gets out before Jimmy does.
Right.
Right. And that's another important plot. There's so much interweaving in this episode. Stuff you have to keep track of, that because I like the fact that I don't want to get off on a tangent, but I like the fact that they, as telling us the story, they never show us whether or not Pussy is an informant. Like they don't give you the info either way as the viewers, so we can all be there with Tony trying to guess if this betrayal has happened.
Right. They want us to draw our own conclusion on whether he is an informant or not. And they're at the club now. They're at the Bada Bing. They're all waiting for Pussy to get out. Here he comes. He's pissed off. His back is hurting. He's barking and hollering. Junior's like, "Hey, we don't run.
We don't run." And then he rips a fart.
Yeah. Yeah. Walks away. And then he walks away, and as a group of friends, I mean, who amongst us who have never been in our group of friends, when one friend walks away, everybody shit talks him.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Paul's like, there's nothing even wrong with his back. He, I went to a specialist, and he works on the Jets, and he did this, that. But he doesn't even want to make his collections. And I offered him, and I watching that scene made me think of me and all my buddies hanging out when one of us goes home or, goes for a drink or whatever. The shit talk immediately started. Yeah. Nothing to do with him just getting arrested. It was about his personality.
Yes. Yeah, we all love our friends, but we have that one or two things about them that grinds our gears.
Right.
And
exactly.
But yeah, like Archie said, Junior kind of, I wrote down here, Junior makes a point to tell Pussy that we do not run, or we don't run. And then we get Tony meeting with Makazian, who everybody knows Makazian's like my least favorite character in this show. I don't know why, because I really do. Is it John Hurd? Is that the actor's name? I really do like that guy as an actor. I just can't stand this character. I don't know why. It's not even the dirty cop thing or whatever.
It's just the way he plays it.
Yeah, it just rubs me the wrong way. And again, I've seen this actor in many other things where I really liked him. He was the dad in Home Alone. But just in this show, in this role, I am not a fan. But
the funny thing that comes from him playing this scene, this part altogether, is there's a meme that said, "Do you ever wonder what Kevin McAllister's dad did to own that big house and take 15 grown adults and 20 kids to Paris?"
And it's like,
and working for Tony Soprano. But yeah, he's dirty and he owes Tony a bunch of money. But the thing that pissed me off the most was the way he came off to Tony.
Yeah,
Like,
very.
oh, no hi, and no how you doing, and it was like, dude, you're an informant.
Yeah,
You're not my
wrote.
friend.
I even wrote down here. He's a little confrontational here. I mean, we can kind of, sort of see later on, because obviously by what happens later on in the episode, the man's under a lot of stress, and so he's feeling a little edgy.
Right.
But he informs Tony that Pussy is an FBI informant and that he cut the deal when he was in Vegas.
Right.
And at first, of course, Tony doesn't want to believe it.
Right. Yeah, well, of course, this is one of those guys that Tony grew up with that worked for his father. So you see the loyalty there from Tony's eyes. You know what I mean? If he would have told him it was Paulie, Silvio, or Pussy, Tony would have been the same amount of shock, because these are all guys I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
That are only a few years older than me, but treated me like a grown-ass man and, helped me do my first work in the mob and whatnot. And all he's convinced about is, show me the 302. That's all he keeps saying, show me the 302. I guess that's the wiretap.
It's I actually looked because I wasn't sure exactly what the three. I knew it was some sort of a file.
Right.
But according to what I could find, the 302 would be the official file that says that Pussy is an informant, that actually has his name on the file, saying officially this guy, it'd be the what the FBI has specifically with his information on it. Tony wants to see, he essentially wants to see Pussy's name in black and white.
Right. And that's why I guess he's so adamant. The cop is so adamant. It's not easy for me to get that, because that's obviously in their file. So why would he be looking? He's not a part of the FBI. He's a cop. So for him to go to the FBI and go, hey, I need to see a 302 on Bompancero, is not that easy.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find that out even later on in time. The FBI and the police don't seem to work that well to each other when it comes to the mob. So, but yeah, Tony's bewildered now. And he doesn't know who to turn to. He doesn't know who to tell this to first.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he tells one of the guys who are like a whack job, they might just haul off and go kill Pussy without, any rhyme or reason.
Right.
If he tells one of the guys that he trusts but doesn't, they ain't going to give him the right advice. He's really struggling now. What do I do with this information?
Mm-hmm. And Paulie, because Pussy's not collecting, and he's blaming his back pain on why he's not collecting.
Right.
And Paulie pretty much, I think, if I remember correctly, and of course, sometimes when we're going through the shows like we do, sometimes we get out of order with things, but it doesn't matter. If you're talking about the story, it's the story. But Paulie pretty much goes to the same doctor as Pussy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been told that there's nothing wrong with his back.
Right.
Tony tries to kind of try to test the waters when they have the open house at their house.
Right. Trying to get him to help move the piano.
And he won't do that. He's being cautious, and so pretty much Tony tells Chris and Paulie to keep an eye.
Right. And then Chris tells Paulie something that I don't even think Tony knew at the time, that he's been popping Percocets like it's going out of style.
Mm-hmm.
Like their M&Ms was the exact way. So Chris knows this about him. Paulie knows this about him. Tony's now finding out that he might be an informant. So a lot of the inner workings of the Pussy character is coming out into why he might be having his final meltdown. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We're not quite sure where we're getting at with him. And again, Tony still hasn't told anybody anything, but he's telling them, watch out for him, And here's Paulie going, well, I offered to make his collections for him, but he won't give me a damn list. So, it looks like he's getting sloppy.
Well, and it's some of this is not only great character development, watching not only, this is great character development episode for not only Pussy, but also Paulie, because you show kind of, as we go through the show, we'll get there, but you can see we're establishing how loyal Paulie is.
Right.
And this is great character development for Tony because you in so many instances, and that's why The Sopranos is great because I love mob movies, but
Right.
in a movie, I have 2 hours
Right.
and I can't really flesh out the human being side of this mobster, you know.
Right.
Um, that's what's great about this show is you get to see the humanity of Tony Soprano too. Like, yes, this is the business. Yes, I if somebody's betraying us, we have to pop them. But you get to see his internal conflict,
Right.
and
Right.
it's so it's and obviously Gandolfini does a fantastic job. They picked the perfect guy to play this character.
Oh, without a doubt. And even his castmates have said that about him before, during interviews, that James Gandolfini was the absolute perfect person for playing Tony Soprano, and they don't think they could have seen themselves working with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You see him really struggling with what he should do about this. Should he tell one of the other guys? Should he find out if it's true and maybe kill Pussy himself?
Yeah.
Should he maybe let him off the hook? Because he's kind of battling that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it really does leave a lot to be desired and questioned as to what's going on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So let me see what's next on my notes here. We covered the 302 thing. We have the little confrontation between Carmela at the nursing home with Livia.
yeah,
And Carmela pretty much is having it with Livia's bullshit. She tells her to
yeah.
cut the drama, and and of course, as we all know, Livia is crazy, but she is also very conniving. So she's she's it's so funny because she's playing, but she's not playing. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing. You can see just how conniving she is because Carmela doesn't really say anything to her at first. She just says, "I bought you some food." You
Right.
know what I mean? Here's this whatever manicotti, whatever. Well, no, I don't. I can't eat that. Well, then give it to one of the girls at the bar. I don't deal with these people. Okay, fine. Well, maybe Junior will like it when he comes to see you. Do you really think I would run around with my brother-in-law? And then it
Yeah.
turns into, from her going to that to, Junior isn't half the man my Johnny was. And it's like, oh, so let me get this straight. You're throwing the guy who you're trying to use to help you kill your son under the bus?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that was her. She went from crying to angry to conniving to then helpless again, all in 5 minutes.
Yep.
So,
And that is why as far and I always say it, and sometimes I get a sideways look from people.
mhm.
Sometimes they nod in agreement. Livia Soprano is low key one of the best villains in TV
Oh,
history.
without a doubt.
Just because of just those elements to her character is just
Yes.
I don't know. It's just she's so fucking conniving. It's like
And
very very rarely do you look at a little old lady and just wish she'd die. But
right. And that's why the show was so devastated when she actually did die halfway through filming, because, well, what the hell do we do now?
right.
And they had to CGI her head from other episodes on somebody else's body just to get those last 3 or 4 episodes done, because
Mm-hmm.
without her there was no show.
Right. Right.
You have to get to at least the climax of her character in order to make the show relevant again. Otherwise it's just, well, where the hell did his mother go?
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't have her ascend up the stairs like uh um what you call it, Richie Cunningham's brother, and never show his face again.
Right.
She had to have an ending to her character.
Yes. And it had to be dramatic.
Of course. Of course.
And then another thing to the next thing, unless you had something else on that.
Um, Honestly and truthfully, in my opinion, the only other thing I have to say was Tony's two biggest thorns in his side having an argument.
Yeah.
His wife, who drove him crazy over everything she wanted, and his mother, who drove him crazy over everything she wanted. So,
Yeah.
there was no lesser of the two evils in this argument that went on.
So a couple of things next. And I hope, like I said, I always look at my notes. I'm like, okay, did I miss something and make sure this is in order or we haven't already discussed it? But the next two things are two things of what I was just talking about the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Tony's at Pussy's house.
Yes.
And Tony is trying to tell him, he's trying to tell Pussy he knows without telling him he knows.
Right.
He's trying so hard to, even when he thinks there's a slight chance that this man could be betraying him, he's still trying to be a friend to him.
Yeah.
And
He's
then
still battling.
Yes, and on the flip side, like I said about the loyalty, in the next scene, Tony and Paulie are talking, and no matter what the situation, Paulie's saying essentially to Tony, he's seeing that this is weighing heavy on Tony, and he's saying I will be the one to do the hit.
Right.
And
exactly.
and what that is these three guys are like, they're like
Brothers.
the Three Stooges, they're the three amigos. And he's like, although we feel we have to kill our friend, it should be one of us that does it, not somebody else.
Exactly. Well,
and it's deep. I mean, it's a deep thing for these guys.
Oh yeah, and again, that brings them into the human side of things to make you relate. Not that any of us would murder our friends or have ever murdered our friends, but how many of us have had a problem or heard that a friend was doing something that we didn't like, and instead of just out and out going to them and saying, "Hey, I know what you're doing," you go to them and you hang out with them for the day, like Tony did. You bring them a gift or something to eat or whatever, like he did by bringing them cannolis, and you feel him out and see what he's going to say. And all Pussy can really say is, "My back, my back, my back." Which,
right.
From what Paulie told him already, he don't have a bad back. Yeah, it's bad, but it's not as bad as he's making it out to seem. So Tony's conflicted there. He pats him down when they get up, if you pay attention, to see if maybe he's wearing a wire when he first got there or whatnot. He hugs him, he, pats him on the back, on the chest, whatever. But then when he gets together with Paulie, you see the loyalty from Paul. You see the utter betrayal on Paulie's face of how could he do this to us after all these years.
Yes.
But then the loyalty to Tony by him telling him, "You don't have to do this. It doesn't have to be your fault. I'll do it. I'll take the blame.
Yeah.
Let me do it." And when Tony fights, he says, "Nope, if it has to be done, I'm going to do it." He says, "No, you've been waiting to be the boss for all this time, so it should be me that does it." So you see that again, we see it throughout the entire series. Paulie loved Tony unconditionally and always wanted to make sure Tony didn't feel any pain or threat and was there for him.
And Tony gets a couple of revelations here in the next couple of scenes.
Yes.
First, he goes to the nursing home. He's talking to the lady in the office. It's just, your casual conversation about how his mom's doing and everything. But she brings up the fact that Junior is visiting Livia.
Right.
Which that obviously, Tony's like, what?
Right.
The thing is, I'm sure he wouldn't have been alarmed about it had somebody ever had mentioned it to him, because you're not going to really be alarmed that your mother and your uncle are interacting with each other.
No.
But the fact that they're interacting with each other and he has never had any clue whatsoever that it's been going on is what triggers that, in his mind.
Well, yeah, but see, here he also knows this already. He knows his mom knows that he's in therapy. And that, because, they let it slip out and she's thrown little subtle hints. So he knows that. His mother also knows that he's moved a couple of his capos' mothers in the nursing home there with her, and that he comes and meets them sometimes. So he's not quite sure what this, pardon me, I hate to call anybody's mother deranged, but this out of her mind deranged woman might say in passing to his uncle, who's already threatened him before, earlier in this season, by telling him, "Come heavy." So he's not quite sure what might happen. So he's questioning it. Oh, wait, really? Wait, nobody told me he was coming here? For what?
Right.
Is he coming just to be a little old man and hang out with her? Or is he coming here to find out inner workings of my life?
And so that's a revelation for him. Paulie gets a revelation, whether good or bad, in the next scene, because what he's trying to do is figure out if Pussy has a wire, obviously.
And he went about it in such a crazy way.
Yeah, he really did. And I think what it is, from a character standpoint, is it's the frustration of, I think really it's not so much that he wants to see that Pussy is wearing a wire. I think he wants to see that he's not wearing a wire.
Right.
You know, he wants to believe that his friend is not an informant.
Of course.
What he tells him, it's good for your back, the heat, come to the pool, come to the sauna. So they go to the sauna. And where Polly makes his mistake, like Archie was kind of alluding to here, is he gets super pissed off at Pussy for not wanting to take his clothes off, which, I'm sure Pussy's been in the mafia long enough where he can see that this is pretty obvious that, like this motherfucker.
See, had Paulie heard him out from the get when he said, the heat is no good for me, and heard the reasons why, he might have not gotten as pissed. Because he ends up sitting there with egg on his face at the end of it all. Yeah. But, as you said, Paulie wants to see that there is no wire there. He's not hoping there's a wire there. It would make him feel better if there was no wire there, because he wouldn't have to kill one of his best friends. But when he go, take your clothes off, take your clothes off, take your clothes off, over and over and over again. Now Pussy starts to think back to, and I'm sure we've all seen Dottie Brasco.
Right.
The people that come to kill you, 9 times out of 10, man, to being your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets weary, and then he yells at Paulie and tells him, "You stupid son of a bitch, I have high blood pressure. If I go in there, I could check out." Which, if you have high blood pressure, any doctor will have told you this. So he's not lying in that aspect.
Yes.
So he gets pissy and he walks out, and Paulie's just there like, well, shit. Now what?
And then now we come to Tony's next revelation. Silvio has done his work as well. Good on him. And he has found out that Makazian is into Pussy for like 30 grand.
Right.
So now,
let me ask you a question though.
Sure.
Makazian was already into Tony for like hundreds of thousands. So what was another 30 grand to him?
Right. And I think that's what I was saying about from a character standpoint. You don't realize it earlier in the episode, but I think once you get to this point in the episode and you realize how deep this guy is in, that's probably why he was so on edge and confrontational at the beginning of the episode. Because
more than likely,
his stress, obviously his stress is getting the best of him.
Well, and he explains to Tony, because they meet a second time, and he's like, it's definitely Pussy. It has to be him. It's the make and model of who, they're saying it is, whatnot. And, then he explains to Tony why he goes to the bordello that they go to, and is, in love with the madam. And Tony's like, yeah, well, if I had a woman that I could go have sex with every week, I would too. It's like, I've never had sex with her. I just go there and talk to her. She's like a therapist for me. And then Tony calms down because he realizes, oh, well, I have a therapist I go speak to.
Right.
So he makes it gets them a little closer. But then when Silvio tells him, well, he's into, Pussy for 30 large, Tony's just like, oh, okay, well, then that's why he's making this shit up.
Right.
Which, again, if I owed somebody 200 grand and then I owed one of their friends 30 grand, my main thought would be, well, which one of them is going to kill me first, not to make a rumor about the other one. So,
but our friend Vin here, he is at the bordello. The place gets raided.
Yeah. The FBI decides to raid the bordello all of a sudden, and they find one of Tony's capos in there. The Dr. Moppinglow, who was all here, and Vin hanging out in the bordello. And it was one of my favorite lines of the whole episode. Wow, a doctor, a mobster, and a cop in a bordello. If that doesn't have the makings of a joke, I don't know what is. And then they walked them away.
Yeah, and this scene is, again, folks, like I alluded to earlier in the show, I know it's morbid, but So essentially, Makazian, knowing that he's in all this money, now his reputation's shot as a cop. He's probably going to lose his job.
Right, which is no good to Tony then. So what does it do? What does that do?
So he makes one final use of his badge to get himself through traffic.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the bridge and he leaps off. And my least favorite character in the show, I'm done. He sleeps with the fishes. I'm done.
Right. He took it. I guess in his mind, I'm taking my own life before Tony Soprano or one of his crew take me out.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because if it does come out that pussy is not an informant, Tony's going to be pissed off and try to kill him anyway. Mm-hmm. And you still owe us all this money, and now you're not a cop? Well, yeah, you got to go no matter what.
Yes.
You know too much shit about us for you to stay alive. So, yeah, he was the only move was jump off the bridge.
And back to our conniving Livia in the next episode.
Oh, God. This was bad.
She
let everything out she could.
Yes.
She just poured it all out.
I put down here, Livia is firing Junior up. You know, she's mad that the house was sold.
Right.
She tells Junior that several capos have placed their mothers in the retirement community and hold meetings there.
Yep.
She mentions Johnny Sack.
Yep.
And she essentially, and this is where I'm saying, what a villain. This woman is essentially firing up Junior to kill her son.
Yes. Without any reason. She just
Junior,
let him go.
Junior, to his credit, has had some conflict about that. He, you know, I think, you know, and as the show goes on, we're going to see it more and more. No matter their confrontational relationship, Tony and Junior really do love each other.
At this point in their lives, yes.
Yes.
Junior has this love for Tony because he obviously was never married, never had a son. You saw the way he had the upbringing. He was always there for Tony and helping him and, you know, taking him to baseball games when he was younger and things like that. So, yes, he had this father-son relationship after Johnny went away to be there for Tony. So now hearing all this, he actually stutters with his words and says things like, you know, if I don't act, and then he stops. Blood or no blood, and then he stops himself because he's basically trying to tell her, you're leaving me no out but to kill him here.
Right. Yes.
And she's crying, but she's not saying, no, please don't.
Oh, yeah. Of course she's not.
Yeah, I know what you have to do.
Of course she's not.
I know what you're doing.
She's doing her fake cry with her little tissue up to her nose and waving her hand and just being the conniving bitch that she is.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Well, then, as we're getting to the end of the episode, Jimmy shows up at dinner time at the Soprano house.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is already like 3 or 4 days after Pussy got out, so Jimmy spent a couple of days in prison.
Yeah. But Jimmy starts asking questions that lean Tony to realize, and I quote, that that Vin's source mixed up the two fat fucks with black hair.
Yep.
But essentially, Jimmy's line of questioning here about the Colombian, the drug heist.
Yeah, you're asking questions about stuff we've already covered.
Right.
You're trying to get me on tape. And Tony knows because Tony has said this many of times in many of episodes. Stronger guys have flipped on the mob and became an informant, whether they've been in for 2 hours, let alone 4 days at the jail. So he understood, this guy's been sitting there talking to them and telling them everything he can. And now that he's asking me all these stupid questions again, it's definitely a misjudgment on who it was. Just two fat mobsters in jogging outfits. Whoops.
Right. Yes. But yeah, like I said, that triggers the thought in Tony's head. He figures it out. So now
he yells at Paulie and thinks he's trying to hear if Paulie maybe did something wrong because Pussy's been out missing for a couple days.
Yeah, and he confronts Paulie, about hoping that he didn't jump the gun.
Right.
You know, and Paulie says, you know, I didn't.
He never took his clothes off. Right.
Right. Yes. So there's conflict but relief with Tony in that.
Right.
Um,
but he lets them in on that it's Jimmy real quick. He doesn't even think to hold it.
Goddamn right he does.
He's like, we ain't got no allegiance to this guy. We can take him out.
He's like, I've gone through all this bullshit for like 4 days.
Right.
And now that I've figured it out, we're going to take care of our problem.
Right.
Right. And speaking of somebody taking care of a problem, we kind of wrapped the episode up with Junior finally making his decision.
Yep.
And he's leaving it in that little douchebag Mikey's hands to find hitmen from out of town. But he has decided he wants to do the hit on Tony.
And what does that idiot go and do? Buy his wife a microwave.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you're celebrating? Because in Mikey's mind, if they kill Tony, he's taking over the Soprano crew.
Right.
That wasn't going to happen.
No.
I think if, in an alternate universe, if Mikey kills Tony and tries to take over the Soprano crew, Christopher would have stabbed him through the eye.
Most definitely.
To get back for Brandon. So,
yes.
Yeah, he wasn't making it a day in the Soprano crew.
And I promise you, as far as you know, and with Tony being the one that took the hit, if Mikey had done that, then he probably would have been on the bad side of Silvio and Paulie too. So,
without a doubt, they wouldn't have. They would have looked at Junior and said, "What are you doing? Why are we not promoting from within?"
Right.
You know. So, yeah, but it was the stupid. He brings his wife. You know, he brings his wife a microwave to celebrate his promotion, I guess.
And then talks his game, gives her information she probably shouldn't have.
Right.
And just what an idiot.
You know, there's all these great scenes with Tony and Carmela when she asks him certain questions, and he goes full on Michael Corleone with her and tells her, "Don't ask me about certain things." And then there's these scenes where he doesn't do that, but he looks at her and goes, "Carm, don't make me make you an accessory after the fact."
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, here's a soldier, this putz, Mikey, who's telling his wife everything, and she's not even acting.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you're showing off for no reason, man.
Right. Right.
But I'll say this. I actually, I think this might be the first episode that I have. I know I've done some 4.5s.
Yep.
This might be the first one I give a 5 out of 5. I can find there's nothing wrong with this episode. It's perfect.
Nothing wrong with it. If you rate this on one of the, if you're going by like other TV series, this is right up there with one of the best episodes in TV.
Yes.
Or cable TV anyway, because it made a lot of loose ends, but it sewed together a lot of loose ends too. Mm-hmm. And you're now, if you go back to 1999, you're chomping at the bit for the next episode.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, I agree. 5 all the way.
5 out of 5. And I want to thank everybody, I know Archie does too, for joining us on this week's episode of the SopranoCast. Next week, we'll be covering another fantastic episode of The Sopranos.
It's the fan, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, season 1, episode 12. Next week, Isabella. Do join us on, of course, if you're listening, you know about the WNR Podcast Network. You're probably in our Facebook group or following our Facebook page. If you're not, do so. And if you are, let your friends know. Let your mama know. Let your daddy know. Let everybody know.
Yes.
And as I always say, because I'm just trying to keep people in the loop, if you do prefer to listen to your podcast on YouTube, you can look for the WNR Podcast Network on YouTube. And I do put YouTube versions of all of our episodes on there as well. So you can go, and if you do go and listen to the show on YouTube, please click the subscribe button and let your friends know about that too.
I agree.
Archie, any parting words for our listeners this week?
No, I think you got it all out there.
All right. Well, we will continue as we trudge through the end of season 1 for the next 2 episodes. We'll see you next week, everybody. Like I said, it will be Isabella, and we'll see you then.
Good night, everybody.